My message for the situation when I'm killed is very simple.
Alexei Navalny, Russian strong opposition leader and a vocal critic of the Kremlin, died on 16th of February 2024 at the age of 47. The report of his death was announced by Russia's prison service, which said that he felt suddenly unwell during a walk. The medical workers who had arrived to attend to him in an ambulance had performed all the required resuscitation procedures but did not succeed.
Make no mistake, Putin is responsible for Navalny's death. Putin is responsible. What has happened to Navalny is yet more proof of Putin's brutality.
However, Navalny knew that sooner or later the Russian government is going to take him down after releasing a shocking documentary exposing the dark truth behind how the Russian government works and laying bare the inner workings of Russian corruption for all to see, which suddenly becomes one of the most instantly viral videos ever to appear on YouTube platform with over 130 million views. He left a powerful message to his fellow Russian citizens, which you are about to watch right now. But if you want to learn more about the death of Navalny and the dark truth behind his assassination, sticks around to find out more. Just make sure that you click that subscribe button, like the video, and share it for all to see.
Здесь у меня просто очевидная вещь. Ну, не сдавайтесь. Не надо, нельзя сдаваться. Если это произошло, это означает, что мы необыкновенно сильны в этот момент, раз они решили меня убить. Ну и нужно использовать эту силу. Не сдаваться. Помните о том, что мы огромная сила, которая находится под гнетом вот этих вот чуваков плохих, лишь потому что мы не можем осознать, насколько действительно мы сильны. Все, что нужно для торжества зла, это бездействие добрых людей. Поэтому бездействовать не надо.
In the summer of 2020, Alexei Navalny, a prominent figure in Russia, finds himself in a city in eastern Russia, ready to catch a flight. As he makes his way to the airport, passengers recognize him and rush to take a photo with him. Alexei Navalny settles into his seat as the plane takes off on its 4-hour journey to Moscow. Everything seems normal until, suddenly, Navalny begins to feel strange. At first, it's just discomfort, but soon it escalates into severe pain. A fellow passenger offers him a bottle of water, which he refuses and rushes to the lavatory seeking relief, but his condition worsens rapidly. He slips in and out of consciousness, muscles convulsing and his heart slowing. Panic ensues as fellow passengers and crew members scramble to help. The pilot makes the decision to divert the flight for an emergency landing at the nearest airport. As the plane touches down, medics rush onto the runway, ready to assist. However, upon assessment, the medics realize Navalny's condition requires intensive care. He is swiftly transported to a hospital where doctors begin running tests to determine the cause of his sudden illness. As doctors anxiously await the results of Navalny's blood tests, they are met with a surprising revelation. According to the lab technician, Navalny's tests show no abnormalities, only minor digestive issues. But the doctors are skeptical. Navalny's symptoms indicate poisoning, not a mere stomach ailment. But despite the inconclusive test results, the doctors trust their instincts and begin treating Navalny for poisoning. They place him on a ventilator and induce a coma to aid his recovery. Days pass, and Navalny remains in critical condition in the intensive care unit. However, the hospital soon becomes crowded, not just with medical staff, but with Russian government officials. Access to Navalny is restricted, leaving his family and personal doctor barred from his bedside, including his own wife, which makes his family feel unsafe and uncomfortable. They seek help from a German humanitarian organization. And with the support of the organization, Navalny is airlifted from Russia to Berlin, where he undergoes further testing. To their horror, German doctors discover evidence of poisoning, a fact that had been concealed in Russia. Alexei Navalny is poisoned with a potent nerve agent, which was developed by the Soviet during the Cold War. It induces paralysis, nerve damage, and seizures. Now, in the hands of German medical experts, Navalny fights for his life as the world watches, waiting to see if justice will prevail in the face of this heinous act of poisoning.
This incredible story: the most prominent Russian opposition leader is in a coma on a ventilator.
Novichok, a name synonymous with terror and brutality. Developed by the Russian military and intelligence, this deadly nerve agent has a chilling history of silent attacks on those deemed enemies of the state. And in a twisted turn of events, Alexei Navalny found himself its latest victim in modern Russia. As Navalny lies unconscious, doctors work tirelessly to treat him as investigators are trying to figure out what really happened to him and who plotted the assassination, and it soon becomes clear that the Russian government is behind the assassination attempt. But the biggest question is, why Navalny? What makes him such a threat to the Russian establishment? And most important of all, why is the Russian government trying to get rid of him? Alexei Navalny comes from a background that blends Russian and Ukrainian heritage. His father was from Zalicia, a village displaced by the Chernobyl disaster, while Navalny spent summers with his grandmother in Ukraine, mastering the Ukrainian language. In Obninsk, near Moscow, Navalny's parents ran a thriving basket weaving factory in rural Russia, which they ran from 1994 until at least 2012. That same year, he broke into the Russian political scene. After carefully watching the political system in Russia becoming more and more corrupt by the rich and powerful, he became a key leader in a broad protest movement against the Kremlin and Putin's decision to return to the presidency after serving 4 years as prime minister. He later founded an anti-corruption foundation which carried out investigations into the pro-Kremlin elite. He published his findings on a series of YouTube videos, usually detailing the corruption of Russian elites. This gave him a platform to reach and mobilize his fellow Russian citizens. For years, Navalny has dedicated himself to exposing the inner workings of Russia, lifting the veil on its pervasive corruption and deceit. In a society built on fragile foundations, with Putin at the top, Navalny's relentless pursuit of truth threatens to topple the entire structure. In Russia, power is concentrated in the hands of a select few, Putin's inner circle, the oligarchs who control the country's wealth and industries. These individuals scratch each other's backs, maintaining the status quo while reaping the benefits of their cozy relationship with the Kremlin. In Russia, a web of power and privilege stretches from the Kremlin to regional and local governments, all operating under the shadow of Vladimir Putin. This system thrives on bribery, secrecy, and intimidation, designed to keep Putin secure in his position while catering to the interests of the wealthy Russian elite. Alexei Navalny, undeterred by his brush with death, emerges from his coma with a renewed determination. The world learns of the brutal attempt on his life, orchestrated by Russian government agents who laced his underwear with lethal nerve poison in his hotel room. Despite the grave risks, Navalny chooses to return to Russia, ready to confront Putin and expose the corrupt system that nearly claimed his life. But he's gonna be back to Moscow with his biggest and most powerful weapon ever. A documentary unlike any other, revealing the darkest truths of Putin's regime. The documentary focuses entirely on Putin and his network of bribes, cronyism, and exposing Putin's lavish secret palace on the Black Sea. Navalny even makes it clear that he's not going to release the film until he returns to Moscow.
Потому что мы не хотим, чтобы главный герой этого фильма думал о том, что мы его боимся, и что я буду рассказывать о его самом страшном секрете.
It's a decision of extremely personal bravery, exposing the dark truth behind how the Russian government works and laying bare the inner workings of Russian corruption for all to see. It suddenly becomes one of the most instantly viral videos ever to appear on YouTube, with over 120 million views. His message resonates deeply with millions, igniting a spark of hope among ordinary Russians and striking fear into the hearts of the powerful elite. After exposing Putin's network of corruption, Navalny finds himself once again in the crosshairs of the Russian government. Upon his arrival, he was immediately arrested by the Russian authorities under the pretext of parole violations stemming from fabricated charges.
He'd only been back on Russian soil a few minutes when Alexei Navalny was told he was being detained. A kiss goodbye for his wife Yulia.
Despite the absurdity of the accusations, Navalny finds himself ensnared in Russia's flawed justice system. In response, the people of Russia take to the streets, demanding justice and freedom for Navalny. But their cries are met with brutality, as police crack down on protesters, arresting over 1,000 and silencing dissenting voices. Even Navalny's legal team is not spared, as his lawyer is abruptly detained by police while speaking to the media in Moscow. This shows how far Putin's Putin's government is willing to go to silence opposition. But Navalny's fight is far from over. As protests rage outside the courthouse, Navalny finds himself at the center of a politically motivated trial, accused of parole violations. Inside, his wife, Yulia, watches in anguish as the farce of justice unfolds before her eyes. Despite the glaring false charges and false accusations, Navalny is sentenced to 2 years and 8 months behind bars. But Navalny's struggle was never just about him or his politics. His mission was to unveil the truth about Russia's corrupt system, to expose how the government exploits its people for the benefit of the elite. Putin and his cronies fear Navalny's message of truth and decide to silence him by putting him in jail with poor treatment and staged hunger strikes. And yet, despite being locked up by the Russian government, Navalny continued to be a vocal critic of the Kremlin. At the end of 2023, Navalny's aides and lawyers lost contact with him, which raised concerns about his well-being. But 3 weeks later, he surfaced after being transferred to a prison colony known as the Polar Wolf in a remote Arctic region of Russia. Navalny's allies said the move was part of the Kremlin's plan to silence him. Alexei Navalny, Russian strong opposition leader and a vocal critic of the Kremlin, died on 16th of February 2024 at the age of 47. The report of his death was announced by Russia's prison service, which said that he felt suddenly unwell during a walk. The medical workers who had arrived to attend to him in an ambulance had performed all the required resuscitation procedures but did not succeed. A doctor working near Mr. Navalny's prison above the Arctic Circle told the independent Russian news outlet Media Zona that the closest ambulance team is 35 kilometers or 22 miles from the prison. By the time it would have arrived, a patient in severe distress would already be dead, said the doctor, who spoke on condition of anonymity. Who were they resuscitating? He added. President Biden said at a White House appearance that, "We don't know exactly what happened, but there's no doubt that the death of Mr. Navalny was the consequence of something that Putin and his thugs did."
But make no mistake, Putin is responsible for Navalny's death. Putin is responsible. What has happened to Navalny is yet more proof of Putin's brutality.
Navalny's sacrifice serves as a rallying cry for change, inspiring countless Russians to envision a future free from the shackles of oppression.